Greetings. What are you messing with? Okay, never mind. Okay, he's messing with one of his toys, not something that he shouldn't get his claws into. Anyway, greetings. We're going to be reading through Acts chapters 7 and 8 today. What is today? Today's Friday? Today's Friday. I'll work tomorrow. Anyway, hope y'all having a blessed day, good day. If not, hopefully this helps. I'm not good at comforting people. The way I comfort people is through sharing things about the one who comforted me. But anyway, kind of getting distracted. Let's get into it. Chapter 7. Stephen's speech. And the high priest said, "Are these things so?" And Stephen said, "Brothers and fathers, hear me. The God of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran, and said to him, 'Go out from your land and from your kindred, and go into the land that I will show you.' Then he went out from the land of the Chaldeans and lived in Haran. And after his father died, God removed him from there into this land in which you are now living. Yet he gave him no inheritance in it, not even a foot's length, but promised to give it to him as a possession and to his offspring after him, though he had no child. And God spoke to this effect, that his offspring would be sojourners in the land belonging to others, who would enslave them and afflict them 400 years. But I will judge the nation that they serve, said God, and after that they shall come out and worship me in this place. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham became the father of Isaac, and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob of the 12 patriarchs. In chapter 7, Stephen's defense is the longest speech in Acts. It is a selective summary of the Old Testament history that turned the charges of his accusers. They were the ones disobeying God because they rejected his appointed leaders. Verse 6, 400 years. This is the time Israel spent in Egypt. Verse 7, combining Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 to 14, with Exodus chapter 3, verse 12, Stephen spoke of God's assurances to Abraham that after 400 years his descendants would come to Canaan and worship God in this place. And the patriarchs, jealous of Joseph, sold him into Egypt, but God was with him, and rescued him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who made him ruler over Egypt, and over all his household. Gotta make sure he's not messing with the wires. Sorry about that. Now there came a famine throughout all Egypt and Canaan, a great affliction, and our fathers could find no food. But when Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent out our fathers on their first visit, and on the second visit Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and Joseph's family became known to Pharaoh. And Joseph sent and summoned Jacob his father and all his kindred, 75 persons in all. And Jacob went down into Egypt, and he died, he and our fathers, and they were carried back to Shechem, and laid in the tomb that Abraham had bought for a sum of silver from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. Verse 9. The theme of Israel's rejection of God's chosen leaders, such as Joseph, runs throughout Stephen's speech, culminating in their rejection of Jesus. God was with him. God's presence with Joseph in Egypt shows that God can bless those outside the promised land. A physical temple is not needed for his saving purposes. In verse 14, when Stephen cites the number of Jacob's kindred as 75 instead of 70, he follows the Greek translation of the Old Testament rather than the Hebrew text for Exodus chapter 1, verse 5. The different texts were apparently based on different decisions regarding whether to include Jacob and his wife and the additional descendants born to Ephraim and Manasseh in Egypt. Verse 16, the tomb that Abraham had bought from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. It was actually Jacob who bought land from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. See Genesis chapter 33, verse 19. And this is where... Is he messing with it? Don't mess with the wires, okay, dude? Don't mess with them. You'll hurt yourself. Okay? You can hang out with me. Unless you want to get down. In which case, I'm gonna chuck you in your bed. Into the bed you go. Alright. I gotta let Max out after this as well. Where was I? And this is where Joseph was buried. See Joshua chapter 24, verse 32. Stephen may have been using the name Abraham to refer to all of Abraham's family or descendants, including Jacob. Compare Hebrews chapter 7, verses 9 to 10. Another possible explanation is that Abraham had earlier bought the same piece of land when he built an altar in Shechem, in Genesis chapter 12, verses 6 to 7. But Jacob later had to repurchase it. But at the time of the I don't know how to read. But as the time of the promise drew near, which God had granted to Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Egypt, until there arose over Egypt another king, who did not know Joseph. He dealt shrewdly with our race, and forced our fathers to expose their infants, so that they would not be kept alive. At this time Moses was born, and he was beautiful in God's sight. He's messing with the wires again. You're going to get hurt. You're going to end up, wrapping yourself up and choking yourself. Okay? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? In you go. Get in there. You have all these toys. You don't need to mess with the wires of my computer. Look, mess with this thingy. Mess with this. Mess with that. It's a loose feather. Don't mess with a loose feather. He's like a toddler. He's gonna choke on stuff. Okay, And he was brought up for 3 months in his father's house, and when he was exposed, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and brought him up as her own son. And Moses was instructed in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was mighty in his words and deeds. Verse 20, Stephen's recital of the story of Moses is in 3 parts, covering 40 years each. The birth and years in Pharaoh's court, the flight from Egypt and stay in Midian, and divine calling at Sinai, and leading Israel in the wilderness. Verse 22, Moses' education in Egyptian wisdom is not mentioned in the Old Testament, but it is well established in Jewish tradition. Did you know? The speeches in Acts are an important part of Luke's historical account. They make up nearly a third of the book. 10 of these are extended speeches, 3 by Peter, 1 by Stephen, and 6 by Paul. When he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them being wronged, he defended the oppressed man and avenged him by striking down the Egyptian. He supposed that his brothers would understand that God was giving them salvation by his hand, but they did not understand. And on the following day he appeared to them as they were quarreling and tried to reconcile them, saying, Men, you are brothers. Why do you wrong each other? But the man who was wronging his neighbor, thrust him aside, saying, Who made you ruler Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Do you want to kill me as you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" At this retort, Moses fled and became an exile in the land of Midian, where he became the father of 2 sons. In verse 23, the rejection of Moses' attempt to reconcile 2 quarreling Israelites in Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 to 15, illustrates Israel's constant rejection of its God-sent leaders. Now when 40 years had passed, an angel appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai, in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he was amazed at the light, and as he drew near to look at it, there came the voice of the Lord. "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and of Jacob." And Moses trembled and did not dare to look. Then the Lord said to him, "Take off the sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their groaning, and I have come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send you to Egypt." This Moses, whom they rejected, saying, "Who made you a ruler and a judge?" This man God